Okay, so good day, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the part of the world that you're from. Thank you all for being here. It's our pleasure to have you join us for the 2024 Human-Animal Interactions Conference in Africa, hosted by Dogalove Human Support Initiative. We had a fantastic experience with the first day of the conference yesterday, and today is the final lap of the conference for this year. We have the speakers already lined up for today, people who will share their experience and share their work as well with us, and literally help to give us a good understanding of human-animal interactions and the impact it has had, especially from their perspective and with the work that they do in that space. So you are all welcome, and it's great to see some of the speakers on the call already. We are deeply appreciative of the speakers for taking out their time to come be with us, to share and all. And for you, the participants, there literally would be no conference without you. So it's so heartwarming to see people sign up in the numbers every year. At the last check now, we have about 578 people that have signed up for the conference for this year. Oh, okay, so Lucy's here. So it's great having you all join us. Please take notes, as usual, a few things. First of all, we would be, so the conference, we encourage people connecting. So please use the chat section to connect, to share where you're joining us from. Whatever other information that anything that you feel will be good to share as well, any information that is related to what we're doing, please feel free to use the chat section to share with us. We have people already on the call joining from Romania, from Nigeria, from Canada, from literally different parts of the world already. I think India as well. So it's great to see all of you joining us from different places. So please share where you're joining us from in the chat and let us know. At the same time, we would really encourage that everyone who's joining the conference, that you're able to modify the name on your Zoom link if it's not what we have with us, so that we are able to, okay, so Professor Andrew is here already. So we're able to harmonize that with the details that we have on the back end. So if the name that's currently shown on your Zoom account is not the same as we have, please change the name on the Zoom account so that it corresponds to what we have already. It will help us out when we're sorting out certificates. So it's great to have you all here joining us from literally every part of the world already. I will be handing over to the co-host, Dr. Praise Akobo, who would continue the event for today. But let me just briefly read her profile once again. So she is someone who has had 5 years experience in social services using education to drive wholesome health. She's a disability inclusion advocate. She leads Yield Up Development Initiative. She's a Mandela Washington Fellow and has received various other awards like the Young Innovators Award, the Opportunity Desk, Impact Challenge, Changemaker 30 Under 30 Award, and various others. Please make welcome the co-host for the event, Dr. Praise Akobo.
Okay, can you hear me? Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. So it's great to be at the second day of our conference, our 2024 Human-Animal Interactions Conference in Africa. So thank you, Dr. Sunday, for the introduction. And of course, we had an amazing time yesterday from our 5 different speakers who shared their wealth of knowledge in different aspects, ranging from Laura that talked about how we can see the ability in disability, to the point where we had Dr. Elizabeth Omrod, who showed us and really made us understand pet housing from a very amazing perspective. So we are going to be going on to the sections for today, and we already have our speakers on the ground. So without wasting our time, I'm going to read through the bio of our keynote speaker, Professor Andrew Zamani, so he can come up. So like we did yesterday, we already have our brochure, so we're just going to give just like an highlight of the bio, and then we'd go right into the section. So Professor Andrew Zamani is a professor of clinical psychology and a Marshall Scholar. He's a John Hopkins University-trained behavioral science academic mentor, widely described as quintessential. Professor Zamani has spent over 4 decades of his work life in clinical practice, initially at the University of Jos Teaching Hospital, and later on at the University of Abuja Teaching Hospital. Of course, he has achieved a whole lot, which we can see in the bio, and he has specific research interests around culture and mental health, psychology interventions, health systems, policy analysis, leadership and corporate governance, substance abuse, security and peace studies, and development studies. So let's make welcome Professor Andrew Zamani as he takes us through giving us a keynote speech that would help us begin the section for today. Welcome, Professor Andrew Zamani. Okay, Prof, if you're on the call, you can come on board. I can see you on the call. Okay, so, okay, I think probably there's a network glitch, but Prof is on the call and he would come in to take us on the keynote speech. So we'll just try to see what's wrong from his end. I think he has gone off the call. All right, so welcome everyone. So you can still place on the chat box where you're joining us from, and you can probably share the highlights of yesterday, how yesterday was for you, what you learned, and probably it could benefit those persons who could not join us yesterday. And please, if you have some persons who you saw on the call yesterday and they're not here, you can also place a reminder. We've sent mails to them, but you can also send reminders to them. If you have people in your networks that you feel that they need to be on this call, you can also reach out to them. And even as we get to the section for today. Okay, welcome, Zakaria Audu, and everyone joining. I think that's about the last person I just saw. And welcome Blessing from Nigeria. Welcome Dr. Nancy from Pennsylvania. Okay, thank you for sharing about the work you do as well. We would have Professor Zamani join us shortly. So yesterday we also shared, Dr. Sunday shared the work that we do at Dogalov, and towards the end of the section, he also talked about for people who are willing to join us. So if you're still willing to join us towards the end of this section, you would also have access to the link that would enable you join us. So you can also help propagate the work that we are doing in Nigeria and Africa. Okay, so I can't see more persons telling us where they're joining us from. We apologize for the delay. So Professor Zamani is back. Professor Andrew Zamani is back. So, Prof, we've read your bio already, so we are welcoming you upstage to take us on the keynote address. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Sorry, there was a technical glitch. I wasn't able to connect for a while.
Okay.
Yeah. Are we ready to start?
Yes, it does look like yes, because it looks like the keynote speaker is having issues connecting their voice. So we probably may just go ahead. But Professor Zamani, if you're able to unmute, and please go ahead. But if you're not able to, then maybe we'll just go ahead to the first speaker for the day. Okay, so it looks like Professor Zamani is unable to connect to audio.
Yes.
He did let me
I
know
think
earlier that he had issues with connectivity. So
okay, so I think Prof is having a challenge connecting. If we still get him back, he would still take us through that section. So thank you. I can see Dr. Mustafa, welcome. So we'll just go right to the next speaker. And thank you for sharing what you learned yesterday. I think I saw that from Maxwell. Thank you so much. We are grateful. So I'm just going to go right calling our next speaker, and that's Minal. So I'm going to read her bio so we can have her come take us on her section. So briefly, Minal is a trained human clinical psychologist from SNDT University, Mumbai. Of course, she's specialized as an animal-assisted therapist and was mentored by the renowned animal therapist, Dr. Cynthia Chandler from University of North Texas. She has also completed her level training in play therapy and is a licensed international pet partner team evaluator. Minal is the first person to introduce the internationally recognized professional discipline of animal-assisted therapy in India. So let's make welcome Minal as she takes us on an amazing section where she'll be speaking about her organization and also the Animal Angels journey of 20 years in India and the field of animal-assisted therapy. So let's make welcome Minal for her section. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for this opportunity to present at this conference. I'll just test this. All right. Yeah. So good day to everyone. It's evening here in India. And I thank Sunday for this opportunity to, speak at this conference. For me, anytime I get a chance to speak about the field of animal therapy in India and how it has progressed, I am very proud to say that it's been a wonderful journey of 20 years so far, and I'm looking forward for more to be able to work in this field and to see it grow, to the kind of field it has become today, and the work that is known not just in India but also in all across the world. So just, to give you a brief about the different animals that I work with, I primarily work with dogs as my therapy partners, but I also work with cats. In the photo here is Cookie, who is one of my retired cats who I used to work with previously. And currently I work with Mango, who's my the current cat, therapy cat that I work with. And working with horses is very new for me. I've just started a couple of programs under Animal Angels where we work with horses in the activity setup. And um, it is not just my animals that I work with. We have a very strong network of pet parents here in India where the bond that we share with not just our animals but our team animals is also very strong. So my partners have always been somebody else's dogs, but very deeply connected with them, and it's been a pleasure to work with all these animals that I have had the opportunity to. So Animal Angels, my journey started, or our journey started.
Sorry, the slide is not moving from our end. It's still on the.
It's not.
I don't know if it's just. I don't know if it's just me. It's still on
No,
the introductory
it's actually
slide.
still, yes, it's still on the first
Has it? Has it
slide.
not changed yet?
No, it hasn't. So I think you'd probably change it from the towards your left. It hasn't changed, just towards your left. You can click on the icon downwards.
Icon downwards.
Towards the left, where you have the slides, the different slides by your left.
Okay.
Yes.
Slide sorter.
Yes.
No.
So okay, yes, I think it's on the second slide now. So you can probably just.
Has it changed now?
Yes, it has changed. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
now you're able to see me.
It's on my co-therapist.
Yeah. Now it's changing.
It's still on my co-therapist.
Oh. Okay, then this full screen may not be working effectively. Is that so?
Can you use the page? I don't know. Are you using a keyboard? So yes, it has moved. It's moving right now. So currently on the social culturally defined human-animal relationship.
Right. So I'm off the full screen mode. I think I'll stick to that. Okay, so that, is this visible now? Can you see the slides moving?
Yes, it's moving now.
Yeah. So I'll just stay off the full screen mode.
Okay, that's
right?
fine.
So yeah, so I was just briefly talking about the therapy partners that I work with, and to give you a brief understanding about how Animal Angels was started. Um, Back in 2003, when I was just starting out as a fresh psychologist, uh, trying to do something different in the field. I was approached by a school who wanted to train a dog for that school, and the school was for children with intellectual disabilities. And back then, nobody had really heard about animal therapy or therapy dogs, or this field of human-animal interaction. My love for animals had pushed me to learn about animal behavior and training alongside my training to be a psychologist. So when I was approached by the school, I could see that just training a dog for the school would really help them, but the training needed to be specific. So the more I dug, the more I found out that this field of animal assisted intervention, where I was from the right background of providing therapy as well as working with a dog and attempting to train a dog for therapy work for these children. And what the only thought I had, or the vision that I had back then, was that this dog, if I were to train this dog, I would train him to provide emotional support for these children who, anyways, the school was for underprivileged children with intellectual disabilities. So the acceptance and understanding that um, uh, that the dog could provide would be much more beneficial than just having like a dog as a novelty in the school. And that's how my journey started with Kuti, our first therapy dog, who's in the photo here. She was brought to the school. She was adopted by the school principal, and Under the guidance of Dr. Chandler, I explored this subject further. I learned under her, and I trained Kuti to be the first therapy dog. And the Kuti went on to work at the school for 8 long years. She passed away when she was 10, and she was a semi-residential dog for the school, which meant that she went home with the principal. She was adopted by the principal's family. So she would come to the school every day. I would train her, work with her in the school premises within the school hours, and then she would go back home with the principal. So the bond that the school and the children still share with Kuti is very deep. And Kuti went on to be not just the first trained therapy dog, but uh, back then, the Pet Partners was known as Delta Society. So me and Kuti were the first registered teams from India under Delta Society. And right now, I am one of the team evaluators for Pet Partners in India. But at that point, there was, there was no such provision. And, I had to figure my way out on what were the standard practices in training the dog, how was the dog going to be evaluated, what are the health norms. So it was all a journey for me to learn as I worked and trained Kuti. But yes, Kuti went on to get the Beyond Limit Award by Pet Partners at that time. And uh, since then, um, uh, the mental health field in India also started taking notice of what animal therapy was and what therapy dogs could do for the different, institutes that we had around. So besides Animal Angels, we also have Animal Angels Foundation, which is a non-profit outfit. And the objective of this non-profit organization is to be able to reach out to those who would not have access to mental health services or even dogs or therapy dog services in our country. So Animal Angels runs with the help of a team of volunteer uh, therapy dogs and their handlers, and a team of therapists who also work with the organization. And we visit various places for underprivileged individuals in different sectors, where we provide this therapy free of cost or at a very low cost, making it affordable and accessible to them. So when we talk about India and the inclusion of animals in India, uh, it is not new for us that animals are a part of our lives, right? Animals have been very uh, tightly interwoven into our day-to-day life, in our culture, in our religion. And India being a vast country, as the region changes from the north to south, you will see, based on the different terrains, based on the different geographical regions, you will see animals being integrated into the lives of those people locally. And all of this has been percolated not just in livelihood, animals as a part of the livelihood, but animals as a part of the family structure, of the religious structure, of the social structure, from art and culture to transportation to everything. So we've had a very deep connection with animals as a part of our, of our setup. And the concept of pets have been very new in India. So even though we always have had animals, these were mostly farm animals or animals in occupation that lived with the family, and not essentially as a pet who is you know who's considered to have certain amount of training or certain amount of norms to live with the family. But as the society progressed, and as now we have the modern setups, the urban setups, we've seen that a lot of the integral family structure, where cows, buffaloes, chickens, or even camels or elephants were a part of the family structure, have now moved on, where we have nuclear families and single pets, or multiple pets for that matter. So we still get to see a lot of this kind of integrated social structure in the rural areas, where people and animals coexist as a family. And that is something for us to study, to understand the impact of the human animal relationship in India. And this particular topic is very interesting for me also to explore and learn about further, of how animals are a part of the religious structure and the cultural structure, where they're not just uh, cared for or admired, but they are also worshipped. So you will see a lot of Indian uh, gods or religious figures which are actually animals and animal representations. And a lot of these religious celebrations and cultural celebration are intended to ensure the survival of that species and the coexistence of the humans and animals together. And just because you know as a religious norm they have to be followed, they have been there for generations in India. And I think it's a good way of exploring this angle of the human animal relationship, since it has stood the test of time for so many years. Of course, there are pros and cons for every aspect, so even this aspect can be looked at from both sides. But I think it has more to do with how to preserve the integral human animal interaction, human animal coexistence through these kind of stories and social norms. So when we talk about animals who have been worshipped, like literally snakes and eagles and elephants and all these animals are worshipped. Uh, in a place like this, dogs, you know, they have a very ambiguous place, so to say, right? So before before animal therapy was known in our country, dogs were either pets who were fancy breeds, who lived with people who could afford them, who would walk on leash, or there would be this image of dogs who are aggressive, or who would be there to guard a certain property, or there would be stray dogs. India has a very large population of stray dogs. So stray dogs uh, who roam around freely on the roads, and sometimes maybe nuisance, sometimes there are beautiful bonding stories with the stray dogs as well. So there was a very ambiguous status of dogs, as to say. uh, so when I started working in this field, and when we started talking about what dogs could do for schools, for special institutes, etc., we had a very mixed reaction. People who were inclined to, or who understood that yes, dogs are beneficial for humans, uh, would accept the idea that dogs could do something for people, especially with special needs. But the skepticism of how it would work, or would the dog be gentle, would the dog be quiet, how would the dog do around children with special needs, what about the hygiene, all these questions were constantly bombarded, and we had to work around that, around the stigma that dogs carried at that point, um, around perception that was there regarding dogs, that dogs are dirty, dogs may carry infection. So we had to deal with all of that. And we had to really establish the image of therapy dogs as dogs who are well cared for, who are well trained, who are thinking individuals, and who understand their role and their place in this kind of a setup. And dogs like Kuti and Goldie in this particular photo, this is therapy dog Goldie. Um, these are our very first therapy dogs who were trendsetters. So the work that Kuti and Goldie have done in establishing the image and the role of therapy dogs and how they carried themselves has a lot to do with how therapy dogs are looked at currently in our country. So it was a big challenge. Many a times it used to happen that we used to be called by an institute or a school to visit, their premises, but we used to be stopped at the gates by the guard saying that dogs are not allowed in our campus. So, it started from that kind of a mindset change, where dogs were looked at as professionals and were allowed inside various spaces. So, like I said, it was not easy to establish this field or work with therapy dogs, uh, where even pet parents were not aware of what their dog could do or how their dog could participate in this kind of work. So it we had to create awareness from the ground level up, convincing pet parents, educating them, creating awareness about what their pets could do than just be pets at home, selecting the right kind of pets, and finding the right kind of partners with pet parents, um, training them further, then convincing or working with institutes in planning programs, finding funding to run those programs. All of that had to be done by us because we at that point there weren't multiple organizations working in this who could take up all these roles. So essentially we had to make this happen from all ends, and we had to make this happen because we had a conviction that this was something that in the long run would be beneficial for animals and humans in our country. So from there till now, the journey has been progressive. We are currently in 6 cities across India, and we are a strong team of pet parents who work with their pets, who are trained together, along with therapists and mental health professionals, medical health professionals who are also incorporating pets in their work. So under Animal Angels Foundation, a nonprofit organization, our key areas of work are providing intervention services, creating awareness programs, training volunteers, and we also conduct a lot of research, setting standards of practice. Um, Setting standards of practice is one of our primary focus as well, because when we started out, there was no guidance in how to get this done or what are the standards that need to be followed. So when we are at a position where we can educate and train and create that awareness, we make sure that all the teams that work with us meet certain standards, and for that we have the help of multiple international organizations that we are a part of. So Animal Angels Therapy Center is our professional outfit where we help other organizations set up animal assisted intervention programs or human animal nature based programs. And we also have a couple of our signature programs, which over the years we have developed to suit the needs of our Indian setting. So like I said, when it comes to standards of practice, we had to uh, standards of practice, we had to modify a lot of what we had learned from other organizations to suit the Indian setting, because not everything could be just blindly translated or copied or adapted. We had to very specifically understand the requirements of the Indian setting, how the pet parents, their mentality, the resources that we had, um, medical standards, or even working with government organizations to understand what norms already existed and what need to be changed. So based on that, we currently have Therapy Dogs India as our training program for therapy dog and handlers. And besides that, I also offer pet partner evaluations for teams that progress further. And as a tie-up with Association of Animal Assisted Intervention Practitioners, we are now also offering training and a chance to appear for the AAIP specialization certification exam. So when I started out, and when me and Kuti were working at the school for intellectually challenged children, the general understanding that had started growing was that animal therapy is only beneficial for children with special needs. So um, I had to push through and create or try and implement new programs to be able to set an example, or not just set an example, to be able to explore what are the different avenues where animal-assisted intervention could be beneficial, and how it would look for our Indian setting particularly. So over the years, we have been, able to incorporate animals in counseling, physiotherapy, play therapy, speech therapy. In education setup, we have very strong school-based programs for special school as well as regular schools. We conduct a lot of animal-assisted activity, community-based programs. We've worked in palliative care centers, medical centers, and hospitals. And the most popular program we have currently is the Comfort Dog program, where our our Comfort Dog teams visit offices, corporates. We had the very first international airport program at the Mumbai International Airport, where our therapy dogs were working for 3 years for the international passengers, at the departure lounge. So we have tried to explore the implementation of animal assisted intervention in all these sectors. Farm-based animal assisted intervention is again close to my heart, and we have had a couple of successful implementations when it comes to farm-based intervention, but there's still a lot that we are currently exploring under this sector. Right. So beyond, beyond actually conducting sessions and setting up programs, uh, analyzing what we are doing and how it is impacting, the community is also an important part of the work that we do. So we have a strong focus on research and documentation, and uh, with the resources that we have and with the limited guidance and resources that we have, we are still trying to, conduct studies and present them at different national and international conferences. A few of them that I would like to mention was there was a study that was done with D.Y. Patil University and Dental Hospital in Mumbai, where we studied the anxiety in pediatric patients, pediatric dental patients, in the presence of a therapy dog and, without the therapy dog. And this was presented at the ISAS conference in Sydney a couple of years back. So yeah, this is a glimpse of that particular project where we had therapy dog Pepe assist us, in that project. We have extensively worked with children with autism and developmental disabilities, and studied the kind of impact the presence of therapy animals in a very structured environment, structured and goal-oriented program would have for these children. And when we get a chance to present these, we do present them at national and international conferences. So overall, I would say that it has been, a journey where I won't say that the challenges have now subsided. There are new challenges every time. But what we've been able to do so far is, we've been able to change the attitude of people towards animals, not just dogs. It started with dogs, and a lot of attitudes towards dog that people had has changed over the last 10 years, especially in the last 5 years post COVID. We have seen that people have realized the importance of animals in our lives, and the importance of having therapy animals and access to them. And we have seen that shift happen drastically in the last 5 years. We've seen, a lot of people who wouldn't think of having an animal in their workspace or in their, setting, have now started opening up to the idea of incorporating or integrating animals in their work. So a lot of schools approach us, a lot of hospitals approach us to create new programs involving therapy animals. Pet parents have there's been a massive change, a massive shift in the awareness of pet parents. So from a point where we had to go and convince pet parents that their dog can do something more than just being a pet at home, we now have pet parents who um, who adopt a pet, and from the puppy stage itself they know that they want to work with the pet further to train him to be a therapy dog. So this is really beneficial when it comes to the growth of the field, in a setting where it was not known at all. Uh, what uh, what we look for more is the standardization in all of this, training, and the approach that people are taking in training themselves for this work. So our approach has always been to provide them all the resources required to work as pet parents or as institutes who are willing to get animals in their space to do it in the right way. So besides the training aspect, we also had to, like I said, modify a lot of things to suit the Indian needs, to create new policies, procedures, uh, when it came to infection control, or when it came to standards for the handlers and for the therapists, creating standards of practice for professionals. All of that had to be done considering how things worked in India. And we had a lot of help, or we took a lot of guidance from IHIO and other organizations who have been establishing these standards, and helping us understand how to get it done or how to implement that in our system and our culture. So to conclude, I would like to say that, even though this has been a long journey, uh in the last it's only been very progressive in the last 7 to 10 years, and I know that there is a long way to go from here, but with the kind of response that we have seen from professionals, pet parents, and even colleges and universities taking interest in this, we know that there is a long way for us to go. And with what we look for now is are people stepping up to conduct scientific research and documentation of the work that is specific to the Indian setting, and presenting it in the community. So I would conclude my talk with a big thanks to my entire team of Animal Angels Therapy Center, as well as Foundation, all of our therapy dogs and cats and horses, and the pet parents that we work with. So if there are any questions, I'm open to answering them.
Wow, thank you so much, Minal. This was really amazing and of course practical. So we have pre-conference questions, and of course we are hoping to still get, okay, we already have a question on the chat box, but then I will just clearly state one of the questions we've had before now. So someone is asking, I want to know how animal-assisted therapy can be used for someone having borderline personality disorder and complex PTSD. And amazingly, the person who asked this question is from Indian.
Yeah. So we work our setup is such that we work with different organizations and institutes who are already providing services in their particular specialization. So when it comes to something like borderline personality disorder or bipolar or specific psychiatric disorders or schizophrenia, we work with organizations who are already providing services in that. And in that, we introduce animal therapy at the rehabilitation phase, where they have their internal team also working with the patients or with the clients on certain goals. And then we include animal assisted intervention as one of the mediums of treatment for them. So currently we have this organization in Pune called Schizophrenia Awareness Association, along with whom we are working with individuals with different, psychiatric disorders, and animal therapy is one of the services provided along with the other therapies provided to them.
All right. Thank you so much. So looking at your bio and everything you've done, I mean, in the past 20 years, we would love to know, especially doing work around marginalized communities. So what was like your motivation for starting the work, and how have you been able to keep up with resilience, knowing that you were the first person bringing in such intervention in India? Yeah.
So my motivation, frankly speaking, as a kid, I never had my own pets. As a kid, I would always crave to have like a pet of my own, and I grew up with the stray animals, or the indie dogs, as we call them, around my house. So uh, when I was learning more about this, and I always had this in my mind that I would combine my love for animals and humans in my work in some or the other way. And it is just it's just a beautiful coincidence that I found this field and I was able to integrate both and take it forward as my profession. So more than just my liking of animals, I think when I got to see how the animals could do more than just being pets at home, right? That their capacity of doing something more than what humans can do was what kept me going to make this visible to all others in my society, so that they would also wake up to this understanding that they can do something that humans can't, and that is where we need to appreciate their role in this field.
Wow, thank you. That's really motivating, and of course inspiring for some of us who this is like a space we are just getting into. So thank you so much for sharing that. So someone has said on the chat box, that's a question. Of course, thank you, Mina, for this wonderful presentation. In what ways has your organization collaborated with health professionals? Sorry, let me get yes, health professionals, general physicians. I'm having an issue with the question, but let me, okay, such as general physicians, specialists, and veterinarians. So the person is also asking if you could share some feedbacks as regards that.
Yeah. So through our training program that I provide, the training program is open for all mental and medical health professionals. And the training program is from the beginner level, where they understand what the field is about, to advanced level, where they learn about the implementation of animal assisted intervention in their field. So it's not just psychologists and counselors that I work with or train them in this field, but I also work on training physiotherapists, speech therapists, or dentists, or educationers in educationalists in implementing animal assisted intervention in their field. When it comes to a more what do you say, a streamlined way of collaborating with this, we are still establishing that kind of a pathway where professionals from all different disciplines can have access to this kind of training. But currently, the collaboration happens when we tie up with an institute to incorporate animal assisted intervention as a part of the services that they provide. And then we team up with the uh, service providers within the institute on how so our programs are not like standalone programs. If there is animal assisted intervention happening in a say hospital or a palliative care center, it is in coordination with the already existing counseling program or already existing physiotherapy program. So it is all very collaborative and supportive to each other. So yeah, I mean, that is how we work with professionals.
All right, thank you so much. So another person is asking, so in addressing or supporting children with various disabilities, is it advisable, let's say in the animal assisted therapy section, so is it advisable to differentiate classes for varying disabilities, knowing that some persons may have much more difficult learning disabilities than the other? So if no, how do you ensure that everyone is being carried along?
Okay, that's a good question, and that's a very specific question. And it talks about, I'll be able to talk about how we structure our programs. So one of the current institute partners with whom we are working is a school for children with special needs, and with them we are working with a range of children, right from the early intervention to the teenage group, which have much older kids. And these are all children with multiple disabilities, and they are at a different level. So the way we interject our program into the school setting or an institute setting is we follow their system. So the school already has classes where these children are, the children are sectioned according to their skill level or their disability level or their learning level. And then we have programs based on their age group, their ability and their disability, so that we have different set of activities for the different section of children that we work with. So in all of these programs we have a pre and a post evaluation, so we are able to see how the child has progressed within that group or within that range, from when they started with the therapy animal. I hope that answers your question.
Yes. It does answer the question. So there's actually a follow-up to that question. So at the end of the day, how are you able to measure the impact of the intervention on that child? Is there a way you've been able to measure the impact so far?
Yeah. So where it is possible, to do a very detailed study, we use, the psychological tests that we have available in our country, and we do a pre-measure of the group and a post-measure of the group. But this is for, institutes where we have a steady group that we can work with, say throughout a year or throughout 2 years. There are certain organizations where we meet different group of people every day or for every session. So there we mostly have to do a qualitative analysis of, noting down how animals have impacted them in a social setup. But where we have the control of being able to document and record the progress from the beginning, we use a lot of psychological tests that we have available here, along with the inputs or along with the measurement system that the institute already has. For example, if it is a school, the school will have its own parameters of evaluating the child before the beginning of the academic year. So we take that measure along with our measurement, and then a 6-monthly progress and then a yearly progress. That is how it is usually evaluated.
Well,
but like I
amazing.
said, research is one area where we do need a lot more inputs and a lot more people participating, professionals participating in the research work. We have some brilliant professionals who are already coming up with, characteristic research in the Indian setup. So I wish to see that growing more and more.
Wow, thank you so much. The collaborative approach in your work is truly amazing. Thank you. So we'll just take the last question.
Yeah.
In your work with children, do you find success in building compassion for animals and other children with bullying, for example?
Yes. This again becomes a very specific program implementation. We have certain programs which are in regular schools where therapy dogs have been a part of the regular schools. And we have seen that once the animal is integrated into the school system, that a lot can be done. And these are some of the very important goals that need to be focused on while working with therapy animals. because therapy animals are in a very beautiful way are able to teach children about compassion, about standing up for yourself, about boundaries, etc. So to give you an example, we have two therapy dogs that I could mention. One is therapy dog Rio, who is a part of Atman Academy. So he's also an in-house school dog where he comes with the principal and, goes back and he'll be in the school for the day. And we have therapy dog Frankie, who is a part of American School of Bombay, who's also living with the principal and would come to, and he comes to school on the given days and is integrated into these programs. And I've seen that we have specific either individual plans around children based on compassion or based on boundaries or bullying or anti-bullying, or we have group programs where we work with children of different age groups, where they understand this message by interacting or learning from the therapy animal of their school. So yes, you can if you are following us on Instagram, you will be able to see more stories about therapy dog Frankie, therapy dog Rio. We have 4 therapy dogs in one of the school in Bangalore. So it is amazing to see how schools are now opening up to understand that these kind of abstract concepts like compassion is abstract, empathy is abstract. Unless you feel it, unless you make the child feel it, it is very difficult to teach about it through just textbooks or through just worksheets. So when they are given an opportunity to work with the animal, not just as a novelty aspect but as an integral part of their school curriculum or their school system, then they learn much more about these things than just like a vague concept.
Wow, thank you so much. And I think we would end up the section for now, but your responses were just on the personal note. Every of your response was speaking to me, and I'm sure that the other participants are so glad to hear the work you're doing, how you've been able to approach it, and as well how you're continuing on your work. So thank you so much. And we would go right to calling our next speaker, which is Lucy Breytenbach. I just hope I pronounced the name very well. So I'm just going to read her bio, and we would allow her to...
I'll just close the sharing window.
Yes, thank you so much. So you just unshare. Thank you. So in case there are more questions for me now, she can still probably respond to it on a follow-up. So thank you so much, Minal. We are super grateful. So I'll just take a brief about Lucy, and she would, of course, I can already see her. Welcome, Lucy.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well, very well.
Okay.
So Lucy has a BSc in Animal Science, Behavior and Welfare from the University of Plymouth, UK, Advanced Canine Behavior Practitioner, and as well, she's the founder of Medical Service Dog Training Nonprofit and Public Benefit Organization, Honey's Garden for Medical Alert Dogs SA. She's also the owner of Pet Dog Behavior Company, Just Dogs Behavior as well. So she's going to be taking us on an amazing section titled Honey's Garden, Enhancing Powerful Healing for Mental and Other Medical Conditions. So let's make welcome Lucy as she takes us on an amazing section. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you. I just want to see if I can share my screen here.
Okay.
If I can make it full screen. There we go. Can you see if I'm changing slides?
Okay, yes.
Okay, so I'm Lucy Breytenbach. I do live in South Africa. I've been here for 15 years now. However, I am from the UK originally. thank you so much for inviting me to talk at this conference. It's quite a big thing. I've only ever done local talks and local demonstrations before, so this is quite beyond my my expertise. So please do forgive me if I stumble, or if I'm nervous at all, if my voice cracks. But yeah, I'm here today to talk about 4-4 healing in service dogs and in emotional support animals. But really, I'd like to talk about the role that dogs play in psychiatry. So I'll be giving you a brief overview on what we do at Honey's Garden and at Just Dogs, and then really honing in on the differences between a psychiatric service dog and an emotional support dog, and the pros and cons for each, and what we believe has worked from our own experiences here in South Africa. So Honey's Garden, let's start with Honey's Garden. It's a non-profit company, public benefit organization. It took a long time to convert to a public benefit organization. It was a lot of paperwork and legwork, working with the South African government, who could not see, to start with, how dogs can benefit the public. So we had to educate a lot of people on the way. However, just getting that status alone allows us to give tax certificates to corporate sponsors or donors, and it just makes everything a lot easier in terms of running a non-profit and funding, because funding is one of our biggest problems. So we were first approached by a family wanting a diabetic alert dog for their son. As you'll see in the top corner, this is Duncan and his dog Honey. Honey is the inspiration for the name Honey's Garden, and all of her subsequent service dogs, we call her Flowers, because they all developed after the experiences that we learned from working with Honey. Now, when I was first approached, I was a little bit confused as to why they hadn't contacted the Guide Dogs Association or another association that might have more knowledge on service dogs. And then after much research and liaison with the Guide Dogs Association, I realized that there were no medical service dog organizations in South Africa, which meant that people with type 1 diabetes or other chronic medical conditions were not able to have dogs help them on an official level as a service dog. So we started training Honey. We actually did a fundraiser, a dog show via Just Dogs, our pet behavior company, and we raised enough money to fly over a trainer from America who runs a diabetic alert dog training school. She, as well as other service dogs, and we flew her over, and she trained myself and a couple of my staff in what it is to be a diabetic alert dog and all of the intricacies that go into that, as well as other service dog types as well. And from there, we were pretty much on our own, and it rolled. We had to do all kinds of things, from educating the public to reaching various organizations about what service dogs are, so that the general public could understand that you can have a service dog even if your disability is invisible. So in the beginning, a lot of our teams would get questions like, but this isn't a guide dog, you're not blind, you can't be in this place, you're not blind, you don't need a dog. So we had to educate security companies, big franchises, anyone that we could, really. We've been on media, on television, radio, newspapers, magazines, just to spread the word about the incredible abilities of dogs and how they can help people. So we have a 0 to hero based pre-trained service dog program, which means that we obtain rescue dogs from various organizations, which I'll talk about in a moment, and we train them up to become service dogs. We also have an owner trained program whereby a person with a pet dog can convert their pet dog to a service dog if it has the correct qualities. With that is where Just Dogs comes in, because Just Dogs works with pet dogs, and Honey's Garden also works with various other pet behavior companies across the country to teach them how to teach the dogs the essential skills to become service dogs, so that Honey's Garden can assess and evaluate, take them through that journey, and certify them as service dogs as well. So the medical service dogs that we currently provide are diabetic alert dogs, seizure response dogs, hearing dogs for the deaf, multi-purpose assistance dogs, and psychiatric service dogs, which we only do via the owner-trained program now, and I'll explain more about that a bit later. So to give you a little bit more detail on the service dog types, a diabetic alert dog alerts to somebody's low blood sugar level, a type 1 diabetic's low blood sugar level, before an emergency situation can occur. And that is what Honey was trained for, our original type of service dog that we started with. However, when people started hearing about Honey, they started asking if we could help with other conditions too. So then we brought on seizure response dogs, dogs that can respond to seizure activity. Now, this means that they do not alert in advance of a seizure. However, nearly all of our seizure response dogs have started picking up on signals or changes in their person's body chemistry that occur before their job should take place. These dogs are incredibly intuitive, and we teach them to recognize the different types of seizure that a person might experience, because there are so many different types depending on the type of epilepsy or the reason why the person is having a seizure. And we teach them to respond in a variety of ways. They can push an emergency button, a panic button that sends a signal to someone in their family's cell phone, or an ambulance service, whatever they need most. They can roll the person onto their side into the recovery position. They can lie under their neck to protect their head during violent seizures. During absent seizures, where the person will sort of zone out, the dog can recognize that and jump against the person to snap them out of a seizure, if that's the case for that specific person. They can bark when their person has a seizure to alert people around them of the activity. They can go and find help. They can fetch medical supplies. And most importantly, they're there for the emotional support, which is so important after a seizure, when the person is coming around. Now, the seizure response dogs that we've trained all have such a diverse range of tasks, because we like to tailor train the tasks according to what the person needs. So whether it's a child, whether it's a person living on their own, whether a person lives with somebody else, what kinds of environments they go to on a day-to-day basis, everyone has these unique circumstances that we take into account when we're training their dog. Then we have hearing dogs for the deaf. Those dogs are trained to respond to the doorbell, the phone, video calls, of course, people calling their person behind. We have one dog who is trained to go forward to look around corners before their person will walk, because we found that a lot of people that suffer with deafness also have very low self-esteem, confidence. Some have PTSD. Quite often they're classed as rude because they're not responding to a member of the public that may be speaking to them. So they're, as well as the dog responding to those sounds in their environment and letting the person know that those sounds are occurring, they also we also train the person to be able to read their dog, to be able to see if their dog is listening to something, and then locate the sound, the direction that sound came from as well. Again, depending on the person and what their needs are. Then we have multi-purpose assistance dogs, and those dogs are really for physical disabilities or different abilities, as we call it now, where they will open cupboards, drawers, doors. They will give forward momentum. If the person is unstable, they can brace to help the person stand. I'll get into a bit more detail on a few cases that we have of those later. And for those, it might be people we have dwarfism, paraplegia, POTS, Parkinson's is our most recent one. Multi-purpose assistance dogs kind of cover a whole range of chronic ailments, and again, are tailor trained to whatever that person needs. And then we have our psychiatric service dogs, which I'm not going to talk too much about now because they form quite a large part of my presentation. But really what we try to do is we take a person's need, we look at their daily struggles, and then we try and think of how a dog could make their lives easier and more easier to get through the day, really. And that might be on a medical level or on a physical level. We are very lucky to have sponsors, because obviously training a service dog is extremely expensive and timely. It takes ±2 years to train a service dog, and the amount of money that it costs for the trainers, for the food, for all of the suppliers that those dogs need in that time is insane. We're looking at about 120,000 Rand. I'm not sure how much that is converted. But we're lucky enough to have these sponsors on board, which cover so Hills feed our dogs every month. Medipet support them with pet insurance. Brevecto provides flea and tick treatment for them every 3 months. And Montego Bag Wags provide treats. And then we're also a My School beneficiary, which means that if people shop at Woolworths and they use this card, then we get a percentage of their spending as well, which has all been such an incredible help in developing our organisation. We obviously do lots of community education and awareness. We go out and speak to universities, to schools, to support groups of all different disabilities or people that deal with different illnesses. And we just try and touch on everything, really, just because there is nothing in South Africa. There was nothing in South Africa. Now we're trying to show that these dogs are incredible and they can do incredible things. And I feel like anyone that is suffering on a day-to-day basis deserves to have a dog in their life that can help them practically, but also be there for their emotional support as well. So we also have facility dogs or mobile therapy dogs, which I won't get into much detail either, because the other presentations have covered the benefits of that. We all know that it's absolutely incredible work that those dogs can do. So what we do is we train dogs and then we pair them with licensed counsellors or psychologists, and they move into a facility and work from there. Let's go to the next slide. So our zeros to heroes, as you can see, we have a huge passion for rescue dogs. And I always get asked what breeds make the best service dogs. And I can honestly tell you that I do not think it's breed specific. It's purely personality and skill base for that specific dog. South Africa has a huge dog problem, if I can say that. Stray dogs, dogs coming through the welfare system, overbreeding. We have problems with people not sterilizing their dogs. It's insane. So for me, to take a pedigree dog, that is absolutely wonderful. And I mean, one day perhaps we might have a breeding program if we get to the level of, say, the South African Guide Dogs Association. But at this point, I see the need to help the dogs as much as the people. And these dogs are the most incredible dogs, and they come with so much more, I find, for lack of a better word, empathy or caregiving behavior, if they're selected correctly, than a pedigree dog that's maybe had its bum in the butter its whole life. Bum in the butter, is that the correct phrase? Its whole life. We find that the rescue dogs just really want to please people. They want to get it right. So yeah, we have a huge space for rescue dogs in our hearts. If you have a look here, the top left, we have Sky, and Sky is a multi-purpose service dog for a lady with lupus. She also has seizures, and she has dramatically reduced the amount of seizures that the lady has just by being around her, because most of those seizures were stress-induced. She has supportive tasks like forward momentum. She was from the Sighthound Rescue, and yeah, absolutely incredible dog. Then we have Bamboo on the right side. He's a typical Africanus, real street dog. He was adopted via an organisation called Oscar's Ark. He was picked up on the side of the street. And he just, that smile, you can see that smile he has, he brings so much joy. And he's actually one of our few successful pre-trained psychiatric service dogs who actually lives in the Netherlands now. And then at the bottom, we have Charlie with the little graduation cap on. Charlie was also an SPCA rescue dog. He's a seizure response dog who now lives in America. a lot of our dogs move overseas. And on that note, our dogs are now legally recognised. So they are allowed to fly in cabin with their people, which was quite a big achievement to get to that point where our dogs were so recognised that now they're recognised as international service dogs that can fly and travel and go to other countries. But it took a lot of years and a lot of hard graft to get there. And in the bottom right, we have Clover. Clover was a meek, mild rescue dog from an organisation called the Animal Anti-Cruelty League. And you can see after being with us for 1.5 years for training, she just blossomed, and she is the most wonderful dog. She graduated as a diabetic alert dog. And since then, the person has, not through any fault of Clover's, donated her back to Honey's Garden. And rather than her going on to another family, we've decided to have her as a therapy dog because she just has so much love to give. So she will be staying with our organisation, working with one of our volunteers and going out and doing community education and supporting those in need on a mass level rather than on an individual basis. Yeah, so rescue dogs are awesome. So public access and education, oops. Yep, here we go. So it's obviously extremely important to us, and that people not only recognise that our service dogs are legitimate, but they can be aware of how amazing they are. There was no official certification body in South Africa, and so we've developed recently this year the Association of Assistance Dogs South Africa, and that is with 2 other service dog training companies that have been developed in recent years. So we're trying to form a uniform standard for service dogs. Now that everyone knows that service dogs exist, everyone wants a service dog, and everyone wants to train service dogs. So we found this huge need to actually put in some standards, put in some protocols that have to be followed so that everyone is on the same page and these dogs are a help and not a hindrance to the rest of the society. All of our dogs have to pass a Canine Good Citizen Award, which is in South Africa, it's the Kennel Union South Africa. But the Canine Good Citizen Award is something that is internationally recognised, and most countries do have Canine Good Citizen as well. So it's the kind of test that shows the world that these dogs can do as well as other dogs across the world. They have to have silver level, and then when they're with their partners, we do encourage them to go on to gold as well. However, some of the tests in the gold were going against what the service dog had learned to do, so we did have some difficulties with that. We were able to update Woolworths, which is a huge company in South Africa, their staff training infographic to include our service dogs, so that so that all of their staff can recognise that it's not just guide dogs that are needed to go out and about with people. All of our dogs have ID cards, certificates, access letters that allow them to be recognised in public spaces. And the poster in the middle there that says service dog etiquette is one of the infographics that we send out to schools and universities that have our service dogs, just to make other people that are in those places aware of how to be around a service dog and how not to interrupt its work or its focus. So we've also been able to change a lot of access signs from guide dogs only to service dogs only or assistance dogs only, which is again a huge milestone for South Africa that did not recognise medical service dogs at all. Okay. So who we are from Just Dogs. So Just Dogs Behaviour is a pet and home services. We also have an activity and enrichment services. Just Dogs is all about pet dogs and about enriching their lives and making them amazing. Obviously, because we have the close relationship with Honey's Garden, we have the owner trained service dog training, which means that people that already have a dog at home that they'd like to become a service dog eventually can work with Just Dogs or any other pet behaviour company in South Africa that has gone through training with Honey's Garden to get their dog to where it needs to be. We found that opening up the training to other behaviourists in the country has allowed more people to get the help they need, rather than just having our Honey's Garden in Cape Town, in our specific region, which would be out of reach for many other people. So this means that although they would have to travel to us for testing, for certification, and now, as you can see, we're talking to the world now, virtually. We can do lessons, we can teach them as they go along, we can keep in touch with them to make sure that they're all on the right track. All of the behaviourists that work with dogs, the pets that are going to become service dogs, also have to be able to provide feedback and have regular meetings with Honey's Garden to ensure that the dogs are on the right track and are going to be able to do the job they need to do. And then Just Dogs also developed the Emotional Support Dog Skills course, which I'll be talking more about in a moment. But we basically found that there was a huge gap between a person that would like or that needed a full psychiatric service dog and a pet dog. And we found that an emotional support dog fills that gap. Emotional support dogs do not have public access rights in South Africa. However, they're able to do things just like psychiatric service dogs can do at home to support their person, which then allows that person to feel more confident, to have a better, be in a better state of mind and have a better quality of life when they're going out and about. So because they are pet dogs, we decided it would be better to keep that with Just Dogs so that there's no confusion between a medical service dog and a skilled pet in emotional support dogs. So we found since 2020, since obviously the worldwide pandemic, that the types of service dog ratio has changed quite a lot. We found that the need for psychiatric service dogs, for emotional support dogs or therapy dogs even, was greatly increased. We had, if I look at our inquiries list, in the beginning it was mostly medical service dogs, but since 2020 it's 60 to 70% psychiatric cases or people that have severe depression, anxiety, PTSD from the pandemic that they would like the support of a dog for. So we found that that's quite a big change from before 2020. And now obviously worldwide, the benefits of utilizing dogs in psychiatry is that much more apparent, and general mental health awareness has increased, and the resources pertaining to improving mental health are more and more available for people since the pandemic. And I think that this kind of wave in mental health awareness has also highlighted how animals can help people get through their mental health troubles. And even the medical service dog requests that we've been having have been geared towards mental health too. And I'll show you a few things in a moment about that. But we found that people that come forward for diabetic alert dogs would also like their dog to be able to perform deep pressure therapy, or be able to interrupt panic, or to help them sleep better at night just by being there and snuggling against them in a spoon position, which not every dog will do. Most dogs have to be taught to do that. So we found that, yeah, that the medical service dogs also require psych-style tasks. And also the need for therapy dogs in therapeutic settings has increased. Now I have here Pets as Therapy, Top Dogs and Jelly Beans Child Trauma Centre, and I just wanted to highlight the amazing work that those three organisations have done since before we started, and how they take volunteer therapy dog teams out into public spaces and into to clinics, to old age homes, to all kinds of therapeutic settings to assist people with their mental health. And just their presence alone and being able to pet a dog has had such a big impact. So with our what we call fur therapists, we've decided that we don't want to step on those toes, we don't want to overtake that we'll rather gear our work towards dogs that are facility-based, that live with a practitioner, that go to work each day with them and actually do trained tasks such as deep pressure therapy or head resting or greeting the people that arrive. We teach them to wave, we teach them to do little tricks, and we teach them to respond to even children that want to interact with them as well. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight how amazing those organisations are already. In the top right corner, we have Edith from Jelly Beans, and she's also an incredible lady. And we're actually training her dog Toffee at the moment, the Golden Retriever, to become a facility dog for Jelly Beans. So she's works at Jelly Beans every day. And then we have Sam, the Labradoodle, who was a pet dog, who then became an emotional support dog and then developed to become a full psychiatric service dog for Addie. And yeah, he's just done the most incredible work over his lifetime for this lady. And I just wanted to highlight how amazing he is as well, and how these dogs that come in as pets do have the ability to learn how to become an emotional support dog. And if their abilities are still within that scope and the person does need it, they can go on to become a full psychiatric service dog too. So next up, I do have a video to show you. Now, this video is from when we first started our program, when we first got the sponsorship from Hills, and it's about diabetic alert dogs. However, upon realizing about the huge weight that mental health plays in these medical service dogs, I realized, and you'll notice too, that throughout this video, it's really, yes, Holly, the dog there, is learning to alert to Lisa's low blood glucose levels to prevent diabetic lows or hypoglycemic events. But the biggest impact that she's having is on an emotional level, on a mental health level. She's helping her sleep better at night, and that sense of security that she has this partner, this new addition to their team, I like to say. So a diabetic alert dog doesn't take away the need to check your levels manually or on a continuous glucose monitor. It doesn't stop the parents waking up to check on their children in the night to check their levels, but it's an added member of their support team. So it really does help benefit their mental health as well. And since this video, we've graduated 60 medical service dogs for a range of medical conditions. Okay, I'm going to play it for you now. You'll see I'm quite a bit younger in this video.
My name is Lisa and I'm 15 years old. 6 days before I turned 1, I went into a coma, and that's when we found out I have type 1 diabetes. So your body produces insulin like a cow produces rainbows. It doesn't happen.
If you're a parent of a type 1 diabetic, you know that you're not going to sleep through the night ever again. You get up and test them, and you worry constantly about if they're going to wake up the next morning.
You have to control your blood sugar, so it's very stressful. I've had 2 hypoglycemic events. It's when your sugar drops like very low, like 1.9, 1.2. I went to bed with a normal blood sugar and I woke up in the hospital.
You don't realize how scary it is when you have to give your child a glucagon injection. That few minutes is the most scariest thing that you'll ever have, and that fear that lingers on for months afterwards is just a horrible thing.
You don't know if you're going to wake up the next day. I'm going to get a dog that's going to help me control my blood sugar and pour or bump me whenever my sugar is not in control.
These dogs, once trained and understanding their job, could potentially stop a tragedy from happening. They could be the difference between a tragedy and a peaceful life or a peaceful night's sleep. In South Africa, the only assistance dogs around seem to be guide dogs or assistance dogs for people with physical disabilities. It's quite expensive to train a dog like this. If they have their dog for 10 years and they save their life once, it's worth it.
I sold fudge at our church. I raised the whole 50,000.
But the main thing we train them is to actually be imprinted on the scent of their owner's saliva when they go into a low sugar state. The dogs need to be healthy, they need to live long lives, and Hills is just the best balanced diet for that. It needs to be something they really enjoy and will work for. And I think if I can help them with dogs, what I know can increase their quality of life.
I'll have a tighter control on my sugar and won't be scared to go to sleep anymore.
Okay. So as you can see, although it was about her blood sugar levels, it's actually about the mental health side of things that's most important. The fact that she's losing sleep, that she's scared all the time. And so one of the big things I feel with our medical service dogs is that they're giving these young people a lot more independence. The teenagers that are unable to go to friends' houses for sleepovers or go out to the mall on their own, it has a big impact on their social life and their development as people, as good humans. So I definitely feel that having a medical service dog helps with that. Okay. Whoops. No, stop. There we go. Okay. So here's just a few quotes, and obviously the presentation will be shared with the notes at the bottom as well for you to have a look. But these teams, none of these are psychiatric teams. So we have our diabetic alert dog, Matt and Oakley in the bottom there. Oakley's taught me to smile again. And this young boy lives on a farm in Durban, and he's never at home. He's out on the tractors, he's out on the machinery, he's out all day, and his mother would constantly worry about him. And he always walked around like he had a chip on his shoulder until he got Oakley. And then Oakley would go out on the farm adventuring with him, because these dogs have to be able to fit into each person's lifestyle too. So that's a big part of our matchmaking, is that we choose a dog that suits the person in need's lifestyle. So then they can go out together, and Matt is always being notified if his blood sugar levels are dropping, without having his mum on the phone every half an hour to remind him to check. And Oakley, if it's a child with diabetes, then we also teach the dog to alert the parents or a caregiver, especially if the child is under 10. Then we have Zara at the top. Zara actually, although she's with Micah, the father in this family is also type 1 diabetic. So she alerts both of them. And we have 3 families like that, where it's a parent and a child with type 1 diabetes, and the dog alerts both parties. On the right, we have Rhoda with Oslo, a real scruffy rescue dog, but with the biggest heart, and he's a hearing dog. And it gives her confidence to be able to go out and socialize, and everyone wants to speak to her because of her dog, and she's just, it's just life-changing for her. And then in the middle, we have Lily, who now lives in the UK with her person. And she's a seizure response dog. So she's there to respond to seizures and notify people if her child, if her teenager has a seizure. However, the quote that came from her mother is about the anxiety and about how she's changed her confidence. She said she's like a different teenager now. And we see that over and over and over. So they definitely have an enhanced quality of life. And just at the bottom as well of this slide, you'll see on the left, this is Sarah Hope with her dog Barley. Sarah Hope has absent, I'm forgetting the word, I will find for you, absent long bone syndrome. And so she walks on her knees and she's unable to reach things. So one of her biggest things was she always used to get stuck in the bathroom, which seems like a silly thing, but actually having a dog that can go to the bathroom with her and pull the door open is life-changing. A dog that can go and fetch her hairbrush, that can walk alongside her and carry her school bag. He'll go and fetch her school bag, fetch her hairbrush, fetch everything. So mobility-wise, her quality of life has severely increased. However, another thing to note is that Sarah Hope is a person that really loves to talk to people. She's a big chatterbox, and she's always got tips and tricks and things she wants to share with everybody. She's a huge evangelist, and she said to me that since having Bali, people want to talk to her. And that's something that was in one of the presentations yesterday, how it opens, it's like a social gateway. Everyone wants to talk, and it starts off by talking about the dog. And then she's usually able to talk to people about God as well. And that's really, really quite amazing. That he's given her that confidence, and he's this little flag that says, hey, I am here, because people would often avoid her or overlook her. And in the middle, we have most recent graduates, Arabella and Leo. Arabella has a rare form of dwarfism, and again, often overlooked. She had to have a hip replacement. She couldn't walk far. She couldn't climb things. Her mum was always wrapping her in bubble wrap. And now with Leo, they also live on a farm. She's out rolling down the hay bales. They've got these huge piles of sugar, like sugarcane granule things, and they're jumping in there together, and he's pulling her up when she falls over. They do park run every week, and she's able to walk further and further and further with his support. And as you can see, going upstairs, she would never have been able to go upstairs without holding her mum's hand. And although she looks about 5, she's actually 8, and she's found that with Leo, she's able to be a bit more independent as a child can be. And on that note, Leo is also a very good babysitter, because he won't let her go too far from mum. So we like that too. The stories that she can tell us about the way Leo has changed her life mobility wise, just because she has him to lean on when they're walking through a shopping centre, means she can walk twice the distance, if not further, because she's not constantly putting pressure on the one side, her one leg, which means she doesn't get tired as easily. And on the right side, we have Hazel, who is trained as a diabetic alert dog. For this specific picture, she's with her foster family, and she provided a huge emotional support for the little girl whose parents were going through a big divorce at that time. And Hazel just wanted to be with this girl all the time and just be with her. And since then, they've now adopted more dogs that then provides a similar service to what Hazel did. Now, the science behind the tail wag. So a lot of people ask about studies that have been done with dogs and kids or people suffering with mental health. And there are studies out there. There's not as many studies as I would like, and there's not many South African studies either. Here are two that I found to be most kind of a driving force behind ensuring that these dogs are able to support their people emotionally as well. And on the next page, I have just a review and some points that I've also thought would be helpful. So they found that being with dogs has a reduction in anxiety, loneliness, depression, improved social functioning, more initiation in conversation, greater sensory seeking, sensitivity, less inattention and sedentary behavior, lower blood pressure, heart rate, salivary and cortisol levels, increased food intake, weight, decreased need for nutritional supplements, more helping behavior and trust, more social acknowledgement, empathy, social integration, desirable interactions, less aggression and antisocial behavior, and more self-disclosure in therapeutic settings. And when I share this presentation, I have actually put in the notes section the studies that I have had a look at. I'm not going to go through all of them with you now, but there's a lot of studies on there that if anyone would like to do a bit of further reading and in more detail, there are studies there. Okay, so, oops, go here. So the difference between the psychiatric service dogs, the emotional support dogs, and the therapy dogs. So a psychiatric service dog has public access rights like any medical service dog in South Africa. The training includes the Canine Good Citizen Award and 3 specific defined tasks which can be done in any environment. They work for one individual and so shouldn't be used as a therapy dog. And they're for an individual who cannot function in a public space without support. A mental health practitioner would need to work alongside the team to ensure that mental health doesn't diminish with the influences and pressures of the outside world. So taking their dog into a public space can be a lot of pressure on someone who suffers with mental health, and so they need a support system around them. Then emotional support dogs are skilled pets who provide us with love and support through tough times. So people with anxiety, depression, trauma, panic, ADHD, demand avoidance, loneliness, autism, or just have general life stress can benefit from real support at home and in pet-friendly spaces. And what we found is that emotional support dogs do not have any legal standing, and I believe that is worldwide. They do not need to have any training. They just need, all the person needs is a letter from the doctor or psychologist to say that this dog is important to the person and it supports them with their mental health, in order to allow them to have that dog with them in a non-pet friendly housing situation. However, we found that in order to fill the gap properly and give emotional support dogs the respect they deserve, they need training. They need to know exactly how to help their person when an event happens, when a panic event or anxiety event is occurring. The dog needs to know how to act. Quite a lot of the time, dogs will shy away from anxiety. They don't like that smell of cortisol. So they have to be shown that if their person is giving off that scent, if that person is in a poor mental health state, their behavior and what they do, what they've been taught to do, can affect that mental health state and help their person come out of it the other side. So I believe personally that an emotional support dog does need to have training, and they do need to be shown for many reasons, from the dog's perspective and the human's perspective. The dog needs a fair chance at helping a person, and not just Fluffy, who's in the handbag that gives licks and kisses when the person's sad. That Fluffy, after a while, is going to experience some kind of emotional burnout. So they need these skills to be able to support their people properly if the person feels that that should be that dog's job. And then there's therapy dogs. So our program is called a fur therapist program. And the dog in the top right corner is Purdy. She's a rescue from the Border Collie Rescue. She's deaf, and she has a what's the word? Sorry. Her leg is slightly bowed out, and she's also slightly incontinent. So she has been placed, we actually took her on to become a service dog, and then we found out that she was deaf and that she's incontinent, and that her legs might not be strong enough to go out into public with somebody every day and be in full work mode constantly. And then we also found out that she loved children. Children are the only thing that Purdy cares about, so besides a tennis ball. So we decided to place her in a place called Durbanville Children's Home. So she lives with the head counselor there, and she joins in on all of their therapy sessions. She plays with the kids outside. She will go and visit them in their rooms if they would like her to. And she tends to lean towards the children that aren't included in the group. So she has a bit of a herding instinct there. She likes to bring everyone together and make sure that everyone is acknowledged. She has a few special tasks. My favorite one is to whisper. So the therapist will say, "Oh, what do you want to say, Purdy?" And she'll put her ear up, and Purdy will lick her ear, and she'll say, "Oh, Purdy tells me that you weren't really listening in class today." And then the child will say, "Oh no, Purdy, why did you tell her?" And "Oh yeah, I know, it's been hard." And then they'll actually end up opening up. And that tool is something that the therapist herself has found has allowed children to open up more. They will tell Purdy all of their goings on. They'll tell Purdy how they're feeling, but they might not always tell her directly. So she's an amazing tool at this children's home, and yeah, she's absolutely incredible. So therapy dogs also absolutely amazing. We love them. So psychiatric service dogs. They are for anyone, as I said earlier, who has a condition that means they cannot go out into public unsupported. We decided after some poor experiences with teenagers that they should be for adults only. However, this didn't quite sit right with me because there's so many children and teenagers out there that need the support of a dog. And that's also why we developed the Emotional Support Dog Program. The assistance that they can give, they can do body safety positions to increase bubble space around their person, deep pressure therapy, they can bring medication, they can bring comfort items, they can interrupt repetitive or self-harming behavior such as leg shaking, nail biting, face picking, hair pulling, you name it, we can teach the dog to interrupt it. They can give an excuse to leave a stressful situation. If the person's feeling some social pressures, they can give their dog an indication, and the dog can jump or spin or give some kind of signal that the person can say, my dog needs to go to the bathroom, I need to leave. So it gives that excuse to leave. They can lead their person to outside, they can lead them to a car if they're disorientated. The tasks, again, are very, very broad. Depending on what the person would need. They also do grounding and prevent panic attacks by doing so as well. Now, practical considerations. So a service dog needs to be with the individual all the time. They're trained to be this way. And so if the person isn't feeling well enough to take the dog out, it may cause some behavioral issues. They're also unable to tap out. So they are in this with their person full time. It's extremely exhausting for the dog, and it can be exhausting for the person as well. And although psychiatric service dogs have a huge benefit, we found that it's a special type of person that can cope with having a service dog if they have a psychiatric illness. If we look at the dog on the left here, that's Delta, with her person Emma, and recently Emma came to one of my classes and decided to reintroduce herself and said that since having Delta, she's a new person. She goes out on camping trips with people that she would never have gone out with before, or she goes out. She's able to join new groups. She's joined rock climbing. As you can see, they do rock climbing together. She's found this whole new social gateway. So for her, having Delta, her condition was PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and Delta makes her feel safe when she's out, and Delta is extremely vigilant, and she does a number of tasks as well. So for Emma, this has been life-changing. However, for the majority of the people that we work with, it's actually extremely intimidating to take your dog into a public space because everybody wants to speak to you. Everybody wants to ask what the dog does. And the worst question that our people get all the time is, what's wrong with you? And if you don't have diabetes or epilepsy or an obvious or a medical condition, and that's not mental health based, it can be embarrassing to say to someone, oh, you know, I have severe depression, anxiety, and my dog stops panic attacks. That in itself can cause a panic attack. Being stopped by security in a place that doesn't, in a country that doesn't really recognize service dogs, can cause panic attacks. We've had several people go out with their service dogs, be denied access, and then have a panic attack. Yes, the dog helps them through it, but they're still, the fact that it happened in the first place is counterproductive. And I mean, like I said earlier with Sarah Hope, like for some of our teams, it's a great opportunity to share about service dogs and what their dogs does for them. But we found that with the psychiatric cases, that actually it's more of a hindrance, and they have to plan ahead and they have to remember all their dog's suppliers. And it can be a lot for them to deal with when taking the dog out. The dogs themselves can sometimes become protective of their people. If their person's feeling anxious, sometimes the dog will act out and try and prevent the environment from making their person worse, which then can in turn make the person worse. It's just this endless cycle of issues if the person's not prepared. So we've had dogs that have diligently done their jobs for their people. One person in particular was a teenager, And the first 2 months was like a honeymoon period. It was absolutely brilliant. The dog was tasking all the time, getting her out of bed in the morning, encouraging her to go on walks, encouraging her to play, reminding her to take medication, interrupting panic, interrupting repetitive behaviors. And then the novelty kind of faded, and she stopped responding when the dog wanted to get her out of bed. She stopped responding when the dog wanted to play. And then the dog decided, you know what, I'm going to go and find myself a different job. And it actually became a very good guard dog. So in that case, the mother actually contacted us and said that she felt that there was some neglect going on. The dog wasn't reaching, wasn't helping, how can I say this, wasn't being used to its full potential. So she sent the dog back, and the dog went on to become a service dog for somebody else because it was young enough and able to do so. And that team themselves are doing fantastically. But we had to go through that to realize that the person needs to have a really good handle on their condition, and they need to be able to care for their dog above themselves. Sometimes they need to remember that even if they're not feeling like they want to get out of bed in the morning, they still need to give their dog food. They still need to entertain their dog, and that can be a lot of pressure for somebody. So the bottom line is that some people tend to think that they need a psychiatric service dog to come in and wave a magic wand and everything's going to be okay. But in actual fact, they need to be able to support their dog in order for their dog to support them. And in many cases, that's really difficult for a person to do who has a mental health condition. And likewise, if we're looking at children with autism, parents that are already overstretched, that already find it chaotic to take their autistic child into a public place, now need to take the dog with them too. It can be quite overwhelming. So yes, it can be great. And there have been cases where the dogs have really succeeded. What we've decided now with the owner train program is that we will only do it via the owner train program. That the dog has to be with the person for a long period of time to get to know them. They must do the emotional support dog course first to get all of those foundational skills, relationship building skills, bond building skills in place, tasks. And then only when the person is in a much better mental health state should they take them on to do canine good citizen training and testing, and then public access testing, because if you try and do that all at the beginning, it can just be too much for a person. We also have, from the dog's perspective, they grow up, if they're pre-trained, they grow up with a foster family, they grow up seeing trainers every day who are in a stable condition. And we can only mimic anxiety so much. We can only mimic these episodes so much. And then they're placed with a person who is the real deal. And quite often they cannot handle that change, that all of a sudden apparent sense of anxiety or cortisol around it. It's too much for them. So from the dog's perspective, it can also be very difficult for them to adjust to. So if we do it, we have a very long integration period. I feel like I might be running out of time.
Yeah.
So
Hi,
the
Lucy. Yeah, so we think the time is actually fast spent, so we just needed to notify you.
Okay. I think I'm pretty much done. But what I just basically wanted to say was about emotional support dogs is that the emotional support dogs could be for anybody. It could be for children, parents with children with all kinds of conditions. The modules that we put in there, it's all in my notes on the presentation as well for people to look back if they'd like more detail. But it really does allow them to grow the bond first, sort the tasks, and then we can, if they still feel they need a dog to be in public with them, we can go on to certify them as psychiatric service dogs after. Thank you very much for listening. Sorry for the rush at the end.
All right, thank you so much, Lucy. This was really engaging. If you look at the comments box and as well practical. So thank you for sharing really amazing insights, especially on medical alert dogs, and of course, differentiating the psychiatric service dog and the emotional support dog. So thank you so much. And there are questions for you, but then because of time, we may not be able to take you right now. We have the next speaker already on the call, so we probably will just have to call him at the moment, but the questions can still be responded to, I believe. Yes, so thank you so much, Lucy. We are very much grateful.
Thank you.
All
Sorry
right,
for
thank
going
you.
over time.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Thank you so much. All right, so we already have our next speaker, and of course, that's Professor Aubrey. Fine. And I'm just going to read through his bio briefly, so he comes on board. Okay, thank you, Prof. I can already see you sharing your screen. Okay, so I'm just going to
Just a minute,
say it. Okay, all right. Thank
Okay,
you, Dr. Sunday.
So just a minute. So just before Dr. Praise reads out his bio and all, just to say that we'll be shutting down the recording at this point. And then we're continuing the meeting, but then we'll be stopping the recording at this point for today. So thank you all once more for being a part of the 2024 Human Animal Interactions Conference in Africa. Anyway, so we'll continue with the presentation, but then we're shutting down the recording now.